Are you ready to stop the self-sabotage and create the life you desire? Well, in order for that to happen, you need to break free from the bad beliefs that are holding your success hostage. You need to optimize the stress by turning it into extra energy for success. And those hurtful habits? Well, we need to give that pain a purpose for progress. Welcome to Stop the Self-Sabotage and Create the Life You Desire podcast. So what does it mean to you to spring into success? That's what Angie and I are going to be covering today to help you stop the self-sabotage, discover what you really want, and create the life you desire. So Angie, what's it mean to you for your clients to spring into success? And why now?
Well, it's almost spring.
Mm-hmm.
So to spring into success.
And maybe that this will give some context. See, whenever Angie and I talk, it's off the cuff.
Yeah.
This is not scripted, guys, because we want to be able to give you what it is that you need right here and right now. So, Angie, we could say in the fall into success.
Right.
So why spring now? What are we wanting to tap into?
Well, when I think of spring, I think of like jumping up or, having a lot of excitement, and it's exciting to see, like, I'm looking outside my window and the buds are coming out on the trees, and it's a rebirth. It's a time of renewal. And so I think of that. I think of renewing me and my own thoughts and my own feelings and possibilities.
Oh, there we go. Possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
It is a season of possibilities, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
Yeah. Of progress, of plugging into potential. Yeah. To where in the fall, we might be looking at harvesting what we had been working on the previous time and going, okay, is that how I want to move forward? But right now, the energy is let's get new growth. Mm-hmm. It's not so much as far as what we have experienced, but instead it's our potential. And are we plugging into that? Mm-hmm. And being able to move forward with that. So yes, spring into success, where your past can inform you, but it does not define you. Mm-hmm. And that we're more focused on what you want to have in life, not what you've been accepting up to this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and I think so many people are so tied to their past that they've become jaded in some ways, mm-hmm. like, oh, well, it's always going to be this way,
Yes. So the client I was working with this morning is needing to reestablish a relationship with one of her adult children as the adult children. There were some things that happened. She feels like a wounded mother. Mm-hmm. And she's going, okay, what does this look like? And I'm like, I don't know, because you haven't done it before. Mm-hmm. You're coming from your wealth, not your wound.
Right.
What do you want to create instead of what do you have to be in order for this adult child to be okay? Because they need to start discovering that for themselves. What do you need to ask for as far as your nourishment in the relationship?
Yeah, I know about that feeling of, we talked about the wounded healer, and it's okay. No, we're the wealthy healer, moving from wounded to wealthy, and not just money, but
give everybody a little bit of insight on that, would you? Because we have not talked publicly since that happened.
Right. So you talked about this client who felt like a wounded mother, and so I have felt like a wounded mother, and just some differences in beliefs and values with my stepdaughter, and also feeling like those opinions of me came out sort of in a blindsiding type of fashion,
Yeah, caught you off guard.
It did. in somewhat, in some ways, because I thought we had gotten past some of those issues, and we used to be very, very close. And when I lost my daughter, my biological daughter, 4 years ago, that really impacted our relationship, even though I mean, when we're in the midst of grief, we don't know the effect that it's going to have.
No, we don't.
And we don't know that we're still processing it or if we're healing from it. And so my stepdaughter, I don't think she's aware that she hasn't processed a lot of her grief, because she lost her mom when she was 10. And then she lost my daughter, her sister. They were not birth or blood related, but they knew each other since they were 2 and 3. And I don't think that she was processing her grief. And when we don't process grief, it can feel like we blame other people or outside circumstances for how we feel.
Yes.
It's so hidden. It's a hidden grief. And so I was feeling like this wounded mother and felt blamed and that kind of thing. And so I was telling Dawn that about a few weeks ago, and how, we there's this wounded healer energy around me and around a lot of empaths and highly sensitive people, and, that feel everybody else's energy. And she's like, no, you're not, or you're not the wounded healer, and you're the wealthy healer. It's just a paradigm shift.
It is a huge shift. Yeah. Angie and I were at a get together that had other women, other goddesses, and another woman was talking about a challenge with a family member. And then Angie shared her own story. And one of the other women present said, yes, the wounded healer archetype. And my reply was, fuck that.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Are you kidding me? Me as a client, I don't want to work with somebody wounded. I want to work with somebody who's wealthy, that they've used that, they've incorporated. It's no longer a pain body, but it's just one piece of them that makes the whole picture, and they're using it, and they've moved forward, and they're tapping into their potential, and they're discovering what it is that they can achieve. Especially as women, we have to receive first, and I don't want to receive anybody's wounded energy. And so, for me, whenever I came across that, it was a big paradigm shift of wounded healer. Now,
have you ever felt like that, Dawn? Have you ever felt like the wounded healer?
No. And this is the reason why, for me, is because my particular type of trauma that I went through taught me to put things in compartments. It was a very masculine energy. It wasn't feminine at all. It did not flow. It was, this piece of me is over here in this box, and this piece of me is over here in this box, and the boxes don't touch. And so I was able to go into, 20 years ago, into this environment and say, okay, let me give you a system and a process for your progress. But then I cut myself off because I wasn't able to share with them how I had experiences that related to what they were going through. And so I had cut off that feminine. So I never felt wounded, but I also didn't feel like I was truly in the flow. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Like if you compartmentalized, it's still not empowerment.
No, because I wasn't able to access all the pieces of me.
Yeah.
And so being able to merge that and begin to be, I don't like the word authentic or transparent, because they've really been overused, but I was actually able to deal with reality and tell people, I have something similar that I went through, and this is what I discovered, and this is how it is now. And just here recently, I was able to reach out to a family member who's going through a diagnosis of complex post-traumatic stress disorder and tell them, hey, I'm sorry, I couldn't be what you needed me to be when this went through. And I told them I didn't want them to answer me because they'll have a tendency to try to fawn,
Right.
fight, flight, freeze, or appease. And
Right.
going into appeasing, I said, I don't want an answer. I'm going to tell you, I'm sorry, I couldn't be who you needed me to be. And I didn't justify it either. I just left it at that, because that's my wealth, that I'm not going to make excuses. And at times I wasn't what someone else needed me to be.
Right.
And
Right.
I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is not moving forward with that progress and potential.
Mm-hmm.
So great question, Angie.
Yeah, no, I think the same thing. Like for my stepdaughter, I apologized for the impact that I had. I did the best I could at the time. And it wasn't a groveling energy of,
right.
Oh my God, please forgive me. I need you to forgive me.
Yeah.
It really wasn't, like, because I have forgiven me, I've made peace with my past. And I mean, I'm the only one that can do that.
Yeah. And I love when you say peace with the path. The definition of peace, one of the original meanings of peace, when we find it in spiritual texts, means nothing missing, nothing broken. And I can honestly look at people and at times go, I'm sorry, I wasn't what you needed me to be. And I know I wasn't doing the best I could at the time. I was not stepping into my potential. And I'm okay with that too. Because now it's, how am I going to move forward? I am informed by my past, but I am no longer impacted in a way that holds me back.
Yeah.
And at times I'm going to go forward and I already know I am not going to live up to my potential. I am not going to do my best. I'm going to self-sabotage, or I'm going to come from my shadow side. But I have to take 100% responsibility as far as how am I going to use that to move forward in a way that allows me to be at peace. It says there's nothing missing, there's nothing broken. And, people say, hey, the lesson will keep coming back around until you finally get it. I disagree with that. Life is not going to wait for us to get the lesson. It's going, hey, you either get it and we can use you, or you're not going to get it. That's okay. Stay where you're at. We're going to find someone else who does get it. In the Old Testament, it talks about that in the book of Esther, where she was asked to step forward for her people, but she was also told, if you don't do it, that's okay. We'll find somebody else that will.
Right. So missed opportunities, basically.
Yeah.
If we're not open. But how did you say that? Informed by my past, but not impacted by what?
I'm informed by it, but I'm not impacted where it's holding me back.
Okay.
And so, this is the time when we go, the springtime, because, all right, we've all walked into a room and we could feel the energy that was in the room right before we walked in. Maybe people were laughing, or maybe they were arguing, but we can feel it. So we are receivers of what's going on in our environment, and it is moving into springtime. So we have March, April, and May for our identity upgrade of plugging into our potential. So we want to ask, what is it that we want to receive over the next 3 months? And then a lot of people will say, okay, well, how do I do that? And that's not the question we start off with. It's, who do I need to be to have that? So think of planting your garden. You don't plant seeds and go, oh, how do I need to get these to grow, blossom, and bloom? You say, okay, who are the seeds? Because
what do I want to grow?
Exactly. And if I'm planting something that might need partial shade, that's going to be a different requirement than something that needs full sun. So the seed has its identity. It just needs to be put into the environment for the expression of that identity. And so, yeah, that's what I want to ask the women that are listening to us today, and the very smart men, is that, yeah, you've got these results that you want to start producing. Well, who do you need to be? What seed do you hold within you? And before you go how, we need to go who, and then what environment does that have to be in?
So I want to say that one of the seeds that you just, to me, mirrored to me is the seed of letting go of shame. Because when you were talking about just how you were describing that, yeah, I wasn't there for them, and I apologized for that. Because we're human and we do make mistakes, and we do have wounds.
We do. And sometimes we do those mistakes on purpose.
But it was just like, I don't have to grovel in it. I don't have to be ashamed of myself for my past. It's like making peace. There was nothing missing, nothing broken. And so I like that. Whatever you would call it, maybe the opposite of shame is acceptance.
So the opposite to me of shame is guilt.
Really? The opposite of shame? I've always heard, shame is when we feel like we're wrong,
yes.
There's something wrong with us. And guilt is we feel like we don't do enough. There's an action that we haven't taken.
Guilt comes about when we violate one of our values.
Yeah.
So we have to know what our values are. Okay. And I can have a value, Angie, of being there for my friends. You happen to be one of them. I also know I have boundaries over how I can show up. So if you were to call me and go, hey, Dawn, can you help me move? I might have a little bit of guilt around the fact that I'm going to tell you no, because my boundary is I don't help people move. I'm terrible at it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to have some guilt because I'm violating a value of you being my friend. Now, shame is when I go, what's wrong with me that I can't be what she needs me to be? Well, I don't possess it. And so that's the reason why shame gets into this overwhelming loop that turns into a noose around our neck, because we don't possess that ability to start with. So we're ashamed, or we're shaming ourselves around something we don't have, and we're never going to have it. But because we were at some point parentified and taught, no, we need to be what someone else needs us to be, not based on our brilliance, but based on what they're missing, based on their deficiencies. And we're going to have to step in. And then when we can't, that's when we were shamed as a manipulation tactic. So shame says, I'm broken, I'm flawed, I cannot be fixed. Because I don't possess what it is that I'm trying to have. It's not internal there. Guilt says, okay, I really need to look at what I'm valuing here. Is the value appropriate for the relationship? Is the value appropriate for where I want the relationship to go? And so, yeah, I may have to experience some guilt in a way that's actually going to bring out my goodness. So that's the opposite of shame to me, because guilt is very healthy. Guilt says,
gives you direction to move,
Yeah. And it says, what are you valuing? Is it correct? So guilt is very healthy because it allows us to see, okay, so to go back to my example of helping you move. No, Angie's not moving. I'm just using that as an example. But Angie, if I were to say, you know what, I can't help you with moving, but, and I would have a tinge of guilt because I value our engagement. And then I could come back when you said it gives me a direction. It's like, okay, but what else could I do?
Right.
Can I bring you pizza afterwards?
Right.
Gluten-free. Okay. So what is it that I do have that I can use? What area of my brilliance can I bring out? And, sometimes that's not going to match what the person is asking from us.
Right.
And so that's when we have to do an evaluation. And it goes back to what you said, Angie, acceptance. To where I'm going to accept sometimes people need things from me. I'm going to need things from them. We can't fill that need. So what meaning are we going to give it? Is it a meaning that this value is so important the relationship can't go on without it? Does it mean that we have to understand our boundaries better? Does it mean that we need to adapt? And that's one of the challenges that we have with relationships nowadays, is that we have placed so many check off the boxes lists on those relationships. And we're like, so for example, significant other relationships, we've almost put them into a place of them being our higher power. And oh, you need to be my twin flame and my soulmate, and you need to have intimacy, and you also need to provide protection, and and it goes on and on and on. And there's no way that that can happen.
Right. We're setting them up for failure.
We're setting them up to experience shame because we're asking them to be things that they cannot be for us.
And that we can't be for ourselves.
Parenting
ourselves. No, I love that, how you described the guilt and the shame, and how, guilt, I knew guilt was related to, I guess, what we're willing to do, what we're doing and so forth. And so what I really like, though, is if someone came to me and was honest and just said, well, I don't want to do that. I really don't want to do that. But how about this? Like you said, a sort of compromise or whatever, that shows me that they care, and that it's okay that they don't have that value. They don't share the same values that I do, but they're at least communicating that, and they're not leaving an unknown there that can be then misinterpreted. By, like, if you're ignored or ghosted or canceled or whatever, then it leaves that mind up, our creative mind up to decipher, well, why in the world, why are they ignoring me? Do they not like me anymore? And then we go on to all these different speculations of what it could be,
Exactly. And when you brought up ghosting someone, not quite a year ago, I did that to a guy. We went out on one date. It was, in my mind, an absolute failure. It wasn't for him because he came back and said, when can we date again? He alluded to it before we left the first date. And I didn't address it then because I didn't feel safe to address it. So when he reached back out, I ghosted him. I never replied back. And it was like, okay, could I have said, hey, the spark wasn't there, just not going forward. And no, I didn't. So whenever I say that, hey, we still do things that are either self-sabotaging or coming from the shadow side.
Right.
And we're willingly engaging in them. And then it's like, okay, well, what does this mean? Everything we do, because we've attached meaning to it. What does this mean? And is this the meaning I want to have moving forward? And I decided that wasn't a meaning I wanted to have moving forward. And that if I did not feel safe with someone, I was going to need to speak up and conclude it immediately, instead of just ghosting them afterwards.
And let them wonder. And another seed it's all kind of tied into this shame and this guilt and stuff, but for moving forward is knowing that we have responsibility versus impact. So having a good discernment between what we're responsible for and the impact that we're having. Because my stepdaughter said to me, and her fiance, like they accuse me of having negative impact, right, on her. And they said, or he said to the effect that, well, over the last 2 years since they moved to Boston, that he no longer believes in personal responsibility. It's all about impact. And that's confusing to me.
Okay. So
we have both. It's both.
We do. So whenever I got into the dating world over a year ago, one of the most dysfunctional questions someone can ask when they begin to date is, what am I looking for in a partner?
Yeah.
Because we're making it all about that partner. That is a question to ask later on down the road. It's not one you ask in the beginning. The first question should be, I want to move into a healthy relationship. Who do I need to be? Who do I need to be my healthiest person possible for them? Who do I need? So that's the 100% responsibility.
Right.
Who do I need to be?
Right.
And then after that, who am I looking for? So when people go, yeah, okay, so I need to have this, and this in my job. I need to have this, and this in another person. I need to have this, and this in my environment. I understand all of that, but are you asking the questions in the correct order?
Right. That's everything.
It is.
I blog about this, about, hey, we've got to look at our own stuff, and
yeah.
And when we do that first, we will have the impact. So we will have the impact that we want, because no matter what happens, no matter what they do, and we can tie it back to, like, who am I looking for comes after who do I want to be?
Yes.
The impact is that if I do that first, if I do my own inner work first, then regardless of the impact that I have, and in this case, like with my stepdaughter, I don't have to shame myself for it.
No.
Yeah.
You're correct. Going back to the guy that I ghosted. If I would have said, who do I need to be for me? Okay. I need to make sure I'm safe. If I'm with somebody that is feeling way too aggressive, I need to be okay to walk away. And then the impact that I will have on them, it may not be the impact that they want, but because I'm coming from it the healthiest I can be, then the impact is going to be the healthiest, at least from my side. But to do that, we need to know our boundaries, just in the way that the seed has a boundary. Okay. We need to know what our boundaries are. And there are 4 types of boundaries. The first one is, hey, I've got this. I don't need anybody's help on it. And by the way, we need to be careful, because that's really easy to cross over into dysfunction, because children who are not given the support for them to learn how to figure things out grow into adults that are like, I don't need anybody.
Right. That isolated type of independence.
Don't you know it? Now, when I process, I have to be by myself. But then after that, I've learned I need to reach out to others and say, this is what I need. But I do have to process on my own. I discovered that. So, so the first boundary is, I don't need anybody's assistance. The second one is, no, I need to make a request of somebody, and we need to partner on this. And so that's when you begin to go into those conversations that are going to be difficult, because we're going in with, hey, this is what I value, and this is what I value about you. Can we work this out? Maybe you can, maybe you can't. The third type of boundary is typically what you need to do before that difficult conversation is you need to go to an authority figure and ask for help. You need to go to somebody who knows how to help you discern how to move forward. So that's the third type of boundary. And then the fourth type of boundary is I've done all I can. This is not upgrading in the way I need to. So I need to walk away knowing I did what I'm willing to do.
Yeah.
Maybe I walk away for a little bit. Maybe I walk away for longer. But I've done what I can up to this point.
Yeah.
So those are the seeds that we're actually planting for springtime, is understanding what are our boundaries. But when you don't have a boundary, when you're living on impact, because impact says no boundary, then you're saying, this is what you, other person, need to do for me to be okay.
Yes.
And that other person has the right to say no. And then what happens? Because you're entangled in each other's energy. There was no boundary done.
Entanglement. Yes, absolutely.
Entanglement and enmeshment. Yep.
Because to me, when you said impact says no boundary, that's also a victim pathology, and when you're saying
trauma triangle.
Yeah. If you do this, you've got to do this in order for me to be okay. It's a lot. This is putting a lot of responsibility on someone else, and it's totally disempowering you.
Yes. Yeah. So for us to have more life this spring, there's actually 6 things I want to touch on. And Angie, jump in. So the first one, well, actually 7, more life. So this is the season where everything seeks more life. Mm-hmm. The universe does not care if it's healthy and functional or if it's dysfunctional. The universe will grow the flowers and the vegetable garden as much as it grows the weeds.
Right. Right.
Okay. So we're the only life form that has a choice that we know of right now. Of how we want to experience more life, because it can either be dysfunction or dysfunction. If you think about it, disease, it seeks more life. Cancer seeks more life. Everything in the universe is designed to seek more life. But is it seeking it in a way in our lives where it's going to create an environment to bring us out at our best? So there are 6 things that are going to govern that. The first one is the law of polarity. The more life that you're seeking is already here. Why don't you have it? That's because the law of vibration. You haven't grown into it yet. We need to look at what are your seeds that you're wanting to plant. Then number 3 is the law of relativity. The law of relativity says, are we comparing things in the right way? I love the analogy of telling a fish to climb a tree. And if it can't, you're telling it it's wrong. Well, no, it's not in the correct environment. So the law of vibration, the seeds that you're planting, the law of relativity, are we looking at what's needed to be able to grow those seeds? Then you have the law of rhythm. Everything grows along an established pattern. There are some types of bamboo that you plant it, and it's either 5 or 7 years. They don't break the surface of the soil. And then in just a few months, they grow 20 to 40 feet.
Wow.
Okay. So they have an established rhythm, but if you don't know that rhythm, then you're going to think that something's wrong with that seed. You're going to dig it up and throw it away. There are some seeds that take longer to produce than others. So do you know the law of rhythm that's attached? Then you have the law of cause and effect, because as it starts going through this growth pattern, you're going to see failure. And failure is excellent. Failure allows you to close the gap between where you are and where you want to be. But are you just dealing with effects instead of getting to the cause? And then last, the law of transmutation. The law of transmutation says energy cannot be destroyed. It just changes form. If you think about rain, it comes down, forms puddles on the ground. Then the sun comes out, superheats it, it evaporates, then condenses into the clouds and comes down as rain again. So the law of transmutation, every thought that you have that you give more life to is going to seek physical expression, physical form. Every thought that you give your focus and your feelings to. So what is it that you're focusing on? And how can you make the journey just as enjoyable as the destination? Because you're going to be going through that cycle. So that's the season that we're moving into right now. This is spring. This is more life. That's the life cycle. And we want to look at, with this brief explanation that I just gave, we all have an area of life where we know we are capable of doing more. Our identity. We want the results. That's law of cause and effect. We want those effects, but we have to look at the cause. What are we planting and growing, which is us? And so we're stopping ourselves somewhere on the cycle. We stop ourselves, we distract, we lose our momentum, we lose our focus. So, just asking the audience to think about where you think you're stopping yourself, because that area and the one before it and the one after it is the trinity that you want to be focusing on over the next 3 months.
Dawn, can I stop you a second? Did you say there were 6 things or 7 things?
Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So more life is the overall cycle, which is like number 7, but there are 6 steps for the more life. So there's the law of polarity, the law of vibration, the law of relativity.
I didn't write that one, the law of vibration.
Yeah, law of vibration, law of relativity, law of rhythm, law of cause and effect, and the law of transmutation.
Okay, I just hadn't written down the law of vibration.
Mm-hmm. So we want to say, okay, where is it that we're stopping ourselves? But then we want to look at the one right before it and go, okay, that there's something there that, and this is where either shadow work or self-sabotage comes in. Self-sabotage is the younger you. Shadow is the brilliant you that you actually hold back so others don't feel bad. So there's something in this step previously where you're sabotaging or shadow work. There's the step that you're in current that you keep repeating because you're thinking that if a little of something is good, more has got to get better. So if you ruminate on that one step, you'll finally figure it out. But the subconscious is a goal-seeking mechanism. It needs to know where it's going, not just where it is. So that's the reason why you want to look at the following step and go, oh, subconscious, this is where we're going. And that I want you now to find all the ways to begin to make this one happen so that they work together as a trinity. We've talked about the drama, trauma triangle. Well, then you also have the trinity that'll take you to the top. And these are the 3 areas that one builds on the next, builds on the next.
Yeah. So sometimes an example would be helpful. So you're saying that they build on the next. So you have law of polarity and then law of vibration. So in this order, I've never really analyzed the order of this before. I know we've talked about this before, but I've not analyzed necessarily. Do you have an example?
Well, the law of polarity, we were talking about relationships earlier.
Right.
Okay. So the law of polarity says that the relationship you're looking for is already here.
Right. Right.
Okay. But you've got to, law of vibration, grow into it. Who do I need to be in the relationship that I want? Law of relativity. What am I looking for that shows that I'm on the correct path of growth? So what are my milestones to show me that I'm improving in this area? I had somebody that dating who has a very chaotic life, lots of drama.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't typically do well with drama. So law of polarity, who do I need to be in this? I need to be an observer instead of being subjective to what they're experiencing. Law of vibration, my ability to grow into this before I decide if this relationship is for me or not. I'm choosing that I want to grow into the type of person that can observe drama in a significant relationship without being, here's your word, impacted. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the law of relativity says, okay, I need to have milestones. What am I looking for that shows? And here was the big one. I didn't need to be a fixer in the relationship.
Mm.
Whenever he was like, oh my gosh, I got this going on and I've got that going on, I could sit back and validate and go, yeah, that sounds really tough. And not offer a solution.
That's hard. That's hard.
Okay. So I validated where he was at without participating in it.
Mm-hmm.
Law of rhythm.
Was that hard for you to do? To not come up with the solution?
Well, so in my mind, I've got all these solutions, but I had to keep my mouth shut.
Right. Was that hard?
Yes, because then the law of rhythm says that we're going to fail, right? The law of rhythm says there's an established pattern of growth. I knew I was going to fail. I knew it. So I'm looking for, whenever I work with my clients and they set their goals and I'm like, okay, great. And now how are you going to screw this up? Because we need to be prepared for it because it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Now, typically how we think we're going to screw it up is not how it's going to be screwed up, but we're still teaching the subconscious to adapt. I mean, whenever you're looking at military special forces units, they're going in for a rescue mission, maybe on hostages. They try to figure out every single way the mission's going to go south. Mm-hmm. And then learn how to adapt to that. And typically that's not what shows up, but because they've trained their brain, whatever does show up, we're going to make it okay. Mm-hmm. Then they're prepared. So the law of rhythm says there's going to be an established period of growth and I'm going to fail. Something's going to show up. So then I move into the law of cause and effect. And what showed up is it wasn't the chaos in the relationship. It was him man, I'm just so overwhelmed. I need a vacation. And I jump in with, oh, really? Oh, I love vacation. So where do you want to go? What do you want to do? Is it more of relaxing or is it? And he came back and he goes, I'm confused enough right now in my life without you adding to it. So how I thought I was going to sabotage wasn't what actually showed up. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the law of transmutation, whatever I focus on is going to come into form. And that's when I used, and Angie, you know we've used this in the past, www.ebi.ok. So it's what went well plus even better if equals will be okay. Mm-hmm. And so I had to look at in the law of transmutation, we can focus and feel good at the same time, not feel good as in, oh, this is happy and joyous, but feel good that we're making progress. Yeah. We can only do that when we point out the progress that we've got. So under the law of transmutation, what went well? Oh man, I was able to keep my mouth shut in all these other areas. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Even better if I can say something along the lines next time, wow, a vacation. I really enjoyed those. If you'd ever like help with that, let me know. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. And then now I'm back on the cycle of the law of polarity. What I want is already here. I've just identified an aspect of my personality that I'm bringing out. Does that
that
help
helps
on the cycle?
Very good. Thank you.
You are welcome. So as we begin to conclude springing into success and the fact that it is a rapid growth season, Angie, to go back to what you said earlier, this is the time of year where people can make leaps and bounds instead of just incremental steps in how they're moving forward because they're tapping into that energy. What is one thing that you want her to know right now in this growth cycle that she's in? What do you want her to know? Whoever that who is.
Yeah. I think that when you're growing and you're going through this growth cycle of life, that it's all okay. Like you're not messing up, you're not screwing up, and to really not bring the shame along. And even if the shame comes along, to just not resist it and just say, oh, there's that part of me that's trying to shame me. And, but not to buy into that, because I think the shame just really, it halts our growth.
It does. Okay. So now I had something that I was going to share and it completely changed because of what you just said. Instability is always directly related to immaturity. Always, 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 always. So what you just said, Angie, when we're feeling shame, it's how old is the part of us that's feeling the shame? And she doesn't need another person telling her how broken, how flawed, and how she cannot be fixed. She needs to actually be loved, to be validated, and to make it safe for her to bloom and blossom with her brilliance. She's always going to feel shame. She's always going to hold that trigger. But there was something else that she was supposed to be doing at the time that she accepted shame as her focus. And so instead of saying, oh, don't feel the shame, now it's like, okay, what do you want to focus on instead? Let's add more life to that. She had something she was brilliant at that she had to stop doing. And so let's bring that back.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Okay. So Angie, what do you have coming up where you others can join you? You can give them assistance. How can they reach out and connect with you?
I'm teaching a monthly healing circle, and that is tomorrow. So it's the first Tuesday of the month. And so I invite people. That's a free community circle. And then the other thing I do want to say, March 13th, I don't know, when will this be available, Dawn? This video?
Oh, in the next 24 hours. So you're
cool,
good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. It's called the Heal Your Heart Online Retreat, and it's starting March 13th. And it goes, I'm chunking it for overwhelmed women. So it's like an hour a day through that Saturday, March 18th. Heal Your Heart. So if people go to harmonyharbor.com, and go up to the events tab, they will see these different events, the healing circle and the retreat.
Excellent. And if they want to reach out to you, email or text or voicemail, how do they do that?
Email is Angie, ANGIE, at Harmony, HARMONY. Harbor is the spelling is HARBOR.com. And to text me, it's 314-422-6520. Okay. Yeah.
And I want to share that I actually have a course that's available called Wealth from Within. The cycle that we were talking about today, as far as springing into success, is brought from that course. It teaches you what are the major fears that you've been taught to engage in, and what's on the other side of those to actually move into your success. So you can go to dawnlandrum.com, see the tab across the top that says Wealth from Within, click on it. You will have the ability to register for the course at a very doable investment. Choose to work with me in the course or become a certified hypnotist, and you will receive the bonus of becoming an instructor for the course as part of your training. So dawnlandrum.com, 1-636-699-7791, voicemail or text, or Dawn Landrum, or dawn@dawnlandrum.com. Okay, so Angie.
Yes.
One final thought. What do you want to share?
That I love our spontaneous conversations.
Yes.
Yeah. Again, just love yourself, accept yourself, forgive yourself, and trust yourself. And all of those things, it's all about us. And when we can make it all about us in that way, ironically, it becomes no longer about us.
Yeah. And that's what leads to a life that makes an impact in others.
Yeah. To make it all about our relationships. I would share a prayer that I said that I've been saying is that it opened me up to love, to turn on my love switch, and to turn off the self-absorption and the I want this. Nothing wrong with desires, but it's like once you turn on that love switch and let go of needing so much, like everything else, I believe, unfolds. Our happiness.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the wealth from within. Discover who you really are. But you're a flower. You'll go through cycles. A flower does not say, oh, I bloomed enough, I'm going to stop. It says, yeah, how do I create seeds for more flowers? Thank you for joining us today, everyone. And we look forward to connecting with you soon.